What would you do if one message, just one, could unravel an entire lie your own family built around you? Because that's exactly what happened to me. I was sitting in a cheap fold-up chair I'd picked up for $12 at a garage sale, watching my phone light up like something was wrong. Name after name flashed across the screen: my mother, my aunt, then my mother again. Finally, my cousin Petra, who only ever called when something had already gone very, very bad. I didn't answer. 23 minutes earlier, I had sent a single email. No explanation, no subject line, just a forward. And now, everyone suddenly remembered I existed. If stories like this pull you in, make sure you subscribe, because this is only the beginning and it gets a lot deeper. But this didn't start with that email. It started 9 days earlier, the night my life got packed into a plastic storage bin and placed on the curb like something disposable. Before I tell you what was in that email, you need to understand why I sent it. My name is Dara Oye. I'm 31, and I work as a healthcare records compliance auditor. It's not exciting work, but it teaches you something most people never learn: how to follow a trail, how to see what others miss, and most importantly, how lies leave patterns. I had been staying with my mother and stepfather in Raleigh for 4 months. Temporary, uncomfortable, but manageable, or so I thought. My half-sister Simone lived about 40 minutes away with her husband, Crispin. Their marriage looked stable from the outside. Inside, it was quietly falling apart. I didn't know how bad it had gotten. What I didn't know was that Simone had already decided who would take the blame, and she chose me. It was a Tuesday evening when everything broke. I was in the kitchen reheating rice when I heard her voice from the living room. Not the words at first, just the tone. That tone, the one she used when she needed an audience. By the time I walked in, she was already crying. Not messy crying, controlled, precise, almost rehearsed. The kind that makes people believe you before you even finish speaking. And then she said it. She told them I had been sharing private conversations. That I'd been talking to Theo, Crispin's brother. That I had been quietly feeding information, undermining her marriage from inside the family while pretending to stay neutral. Every word landed exactly where she wanted it to. My mother looked at me like something cracked beyond repair. My stepfather didn't even look at me. He just said, "This isn't going to work anymore," and went to get a plastic storage bin. That was it, no discussion, no questions, just removal. I didn't argue, not because I agreed, but because I understood something in that moment. There was no version of that conversation where I won, so I took the bin. I packed what I could, called a car, and left. If you think this is where I broke down, it isn't. This is where I started paying attention. If you're still with me right now, make sure you're subscribed, because what comes next is where everything flips. The next day, my friend Ren came over. She didn't comfort me, didn't offer empty reassurance. She just listened, completely, silently, until I finished. Then she asked one question. What was Simone afraid of before she decided to be afraid of you? That question stayed with me, because fear like that doesn't appear out of nowhere. It gets redirected. So I did what I always do. I stopped thinking emotionally and started thinking structurally. I went through everything I actually knew, not assumptions, not feelings, just facts, patterns, and then something surfaced, not evidence yet, just direction. Ren had heard something. A name, Fletcher Obi, someone Simone had been spending time with at professional retreats over the past year. It wasn't proof, but it was a thread. And I've learned something about threads: if you pull carefully enough, they lead somewhere. The more I looked, the clearer it became. Simone hadn't panicked that night. She had prepared. Weeks before the accusations, she had already started testing the story, calling extended family, asking leading questions, planting doubt. She wasn't reacting. She was building a narrative, and my name had been written into it long before I ever walked into that living room. Then came the email. Before I tell you what was inside that email, hit subscribe. You're going to want to see how this changes everything. A completely ordinary Thursday morning. I was at work reviewing a contract amendment when it arrived. 2 weeks earlier, I had sent a routine inquiry to a hotel, just checking if my email had mistakenly stayed attached to an old booking system from an event I helped coordinate over a year ago. I almost forgot about it, until they replied. They confirmed the error. My email had remained attached to a reused reservation profile, and they sent the records for correction purposes, Administrative oversight, nothing more. At least that's what it should have been. I opened the attachment, read it once, then again, and then I didn't move for 4 full minutes, because suddenly everything made sense. 2 adjacent rooms, 3 separate bookings, 6 months. One name listed clearly, another hidden behind a corporate alias. But the billing trail, it led right back to Simone. Check-in times within minutes of each other. Late checkouts, repeated patterns, it wasn't speculation anymore. It was a record, and records don't lie. I forwarded it to Ren, she called immediately, and all she said was, that's why she needed someone else to carry the blame. That night, I went to Simone's house. I didn't knock twice. I didn't hesitate, because I already knew this wasn't about asking questions anymore. This was about answers. And what she said next, that's when I realized she was never sorry, just careful. She stood there for a second too long after opening the door, just enough time to arrange her face into something composed, something mildly inconvenienced, as if I had interrupted a perfectly ordinary evening. I didn't give her time to speak first. I want to know why you used my name, I said, holding her gaze, before anyone even thought to ask what you were trying to hide. She let out a short laugh, dismissive, controlled. You've been talking to Crispin. I didn't respond. I just lifted my phone and turned the screen toward her. For the first time that night, something shifted. Not panic, not guilt, something quieter, more calculating. Her eyes moved across the screen, scanning, processing, then back to me. Where did you get that? From the hotel, I said calmly. You reused an old booking profile. My email stayed attached. They corrected it and sent me everything. Silence. The kind that stretches just long enough to reveal what words can't cover. Then she tried. First, denial. I don't know what you think you're looking at. Then, injured pride. This is a violation of privacy. And finally, offense. You had no right to go digging into. I didn't dig, I cut in. It came to me. That landed, because she knew the difference. She knew this wasn't something I had chased. It was something she had failed to bury. For a moment, I thought maybe there would be honesty, something real. But instead, she said the one thing that closed every door I had still left open. I just needed it to land somewhere that wasn't me. Subscribe if you've ever been blamed for something that wasn't yours, because what happens next is the part no one prepares you for. Not I made a mistake. Not I didn't know how to fix it. Just somewhere that wasn't me, that was it. That was the truth. Not messy, not emotional, just deliberate. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to argue. I turned and walked away. I had barely made it halfway to my car when my phone started ringing. Simone, then my mother, then Roland, one after another. I didn't answer any of them. I drove home in silence. And for the first time since that night on the curb, everything felt clear. Not better, but clear. If you've made it this far, you already know this is where most people hesitate, where they second-guess themselves, where they wonder if it's worth it. I didn't. I opened my laptop, and I wrote the email, 3 paragraphs, no emotion, no accusations beyond what I could prove. I named what had been said about me. I explained the administrative error, attached the records, and ended with one sentence. I am not available to continue absorbing blame that was built to protect someone else's choices. I sent it to my mother, to Roland, and to Crispin. Then I closed the laptop. The responses came faster than I expected, under 10 minutes. Simone, please don't send this to anyone else. My mother, we were wrong. Please just give us one chance. Roland, this needs to stay between us. Between us. That phrase sat with me for a long time, because between us had never protected me, only them. An hour later, Crispin called. He didn't rush into words, didn't fill the silence. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded steady, but heavy, like something he had been carrying for a long time had finally been set down. You didn't deserve any of this. That was all. No dramatics, no apologies on behalf of anyone else, just a simple truth. And somehow, that mattered more. He told me his attorney would be reaching out. I said okay, and that was the end of the call. 3 days later, something unexpected happened. I was at work when my director showed up at my office door. She didn't sit down, didn't ask questions in a way that felt invasive. She just said, I've heard there may be a personal matter brushing up against some professional circles. I stayed quiet. She continued, if anyone tries to make that your problem here, you send them to me. Then she left, just like that, No pressure, no curiosity, just support. I held it together until she walked away. Then I didn't. Weeks passed. Slowly, things began to settle, not back to how they were, but into something new, something quieter. The sublet I had rushed into started to feel less temporary, more stable. I bought a floor lamp. Learned how the building sounded after 10 p.m., stopped assuming silence meant something was wrong. Ren came over one evening and painted my kitchen wall a deep green, dark, intentional, grounded. "It's an honest color," she said. I didn't argue. The calls from my family slowed, then stopped, then turned into messages. Apologies mostly, carefully worded, measured. The kind that arrive when denial is no longer an option. My mother eventually said she was sorry. And I believed that she meant it, but meaning something and undoing it are not the same thing. Roland texted once, asking if we could talk. I read it, put my phone face down, and made coffee. Simone came to my door one evening. Alone, no performance this time, no audience. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, just less certain. She said things that sounded like understanding, but felt like negotiation. She wanted me to help calm things down, wanted me to soften Crispin's position, wanted this to become quiet, manageable, containable. "I'm still your sister," she said. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "You were, until you decided my name was easier to spend than your own." That landed harder than anything else I had said, because it was true. She didn't argue, she just left, angry, and for once that anger felt real, not performed, not shaped. Just real. Here's what I understand now. Something I didn't that night on the curb. The truth doesn't always change anything immediately. It doesn't rewind decisions. It doesn't undo damage. What it does is remove the comfort people had in ignoring it. The email from the hotel wasn't dramatic. It wasn't revenge. It was a correction. A small administrative mistake. But it arrived at exactly the point where her secret and my silence intersected. And that intersection, that was all it took. I still live in that apartment. I renewed the lease. I sleep through the night now, which for a long time I couldn't. And I've stopped measuring my life against the version I thought I'd have. But there's one question that hasn't left me. Not once. When apologies only come after proof makes silence impossible when people come back, not because they saw clearly, but because they got caught. What exactly is that? Is it love finally finding its way back? Or is it just fear, learning where it can no longer hide? If that question stayed with you too, you already know what to do. If this story made you think, even for a second, subscribe. Because some stories aren't just told, they stay with you.